346. Yeah, okay, we're ready to stream. Let's stream it, which we're going to have to start this off. Okay, start streaming, and we'll turn it off, I swear. I won't leave it on again so you hear my voice and go, who is that? All right, we're back. We are COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester at Centennial, and I'm trying this new stream thing going on. This time what I want to do is I want to start a new project with Visual Studio, and I want to create a calculator. So let's do this together. We're going to start off by making a new app. Let's do this together. I'm going to go into File, New Project. File, New Project. And again, what I did last time was I called it COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester at lesson 9. And you guys are the C team, if I'm not wrong. You guys are group 3. There we go. And it's going to go to this funny place called Tom's Repos. I don't want to do that, although I did that last time somehow. I wanted to go, see, it went to repos. That's bad. I wanted to actually go to my desktop in COMP123. This is where I'm putting it. There we go. And I've clicked on Create New Git Repository. If you still see Add to Source Control, that means you haven't followed my steps from last week, or your system in front of you hasn't remembered that you've set up all that GitHub stuff, because it should say Create New Git Repository. Okay. I'm using .NET Framework 4.7.2 today. You could certainly use 4.7.1 or a previous version up to 4.6, but anything beyond that or before that is probably bad. I'm going to press OK. It's going to set up the files. So the sample project is right here. Okay, quickly, what I want to do is I need to rename this thing. So it can't be Form 1. Form 1 doesn't make any sense. I'm going to make a calculator today and on Wednesday, so I mean a real calculator as much as I can. And by the way, one of the things I've done with you guys by giving you assignment 4 is giving you an opportunity to make one of my Hello World apps. I have several Hello World apps that I make. I call them Hello World apps because they teach me how to use a platform. So example, I want to learn how to use Java, and I already did a Hello World app, a BMI application on C#. I know how to do it. All I need to do is take my code and try and figure out what the analog is in Java, or in JavaScript, or in iOS, or in Kotlin, or in Python, or whatever language, right? And so I call it a Hello World app. So here, I want to change the form name. I'm going to right-click here and rename the form, and it's going to be called the calculator form. Okay, there it is. I'm going to press yes. And what I want to do is I want to change this form's size. So again, I'm going to go to this properties little button here. I'm going to change the form size to 800 by 600 this time. Right? So 800 by 600. This is one way to do it. You can also go into the size value and change the width and the height individually. Okay? So my form is now 800 by 600. If I run the form right now, it looks like this. It looks like it kind of comes down there. I don't want that. I want my form to be centered in my screen like this. And the way to change that is if I go down on the properties of my form to start position, I want to change this from Windows default location to center screen and save. So now when I run this thing, it'll actually start in the middle of my screen like this. Are you with me? Yeah? Okay, so now we can get rid of this. And what I want to do here is, notice that my form says Form 1. Good practice is to change the title bar. So this will be called Calculator Form. Or simply a calculator, that's what I want to try and make. And I want to save it. Okay, guess what? This is a great place to put it up on GitHub, right? Why? I've made my first form, right? My form is blank. It's a base project, right? I've made it so that it's 800 by 600. I've also made it so it's center screen and it's ready to receive other controls. This is a great place to put it up on GitHub because I haven't done anything, right? So I'm going to go into, and again, it'll look different for you, but if I go into Team Explorer, sorry? are you talking about my repo? Directly from here. Directly from here, right? So I'm going to my Team Explorer, right? My Team Explorer window, by the way, if you notice, it's right down here, so it's parked on the right. You can get that by going to View, Team Explorer, okay? That's one way to do it as well, if you don't see it over here. Alright, so here's my Team Explorer right here. I want to click on the Home button, right? Which takes me over here. Now, if you don't see this, if I click Changes, and you don't see this, there's a possibility that you didn't add your project to source control, right? So if you look at this, if you go back to Solution Explorer, if you don't see that, and if you right click on Solution, follow me here guys, if you right click on Solution, if you didn't do things properly, somewhere down here you'll see something that says Add to Source Control, right? If you see that, please click it, because from here on in you won't be able to continue with version control. If you see that. I don't see it because I added my stuff to Git, like I did in the beginning when I created my project. But if you didn't do that, if you missed it, this is the place to add it now. Okay? Now, going back, I'm going to go back to Team Explorer. I'm going to go back to my home. I'm going to go to Changes. I see this part. And I'm going to add a little comment that says, created base empty form. That's what I did for my calculator. I'm going to commit all. And when I click commit all, and I added that little comment, right, it does actually this. It says, hey, git add dot, like we talked about last couple weeks ago, right? Which adds everything to my staging area, right? Git commit minus M, the name of whatever I put in there. And my commit was created base form, right? That's what it is. So I did those two things. Now I need to push. But I can't do that because I don't have a remote. My remote has not been created yet. I have to click sync to do this. If I click sync, or you can do it here, or you can go to home, sync. Either way is fine. You'll see it comes up with these options. The first time, right? Only the first time. Push to Azure DevOps, no, I'm not going to do that. Publish to GitHub, yes. And if you don't see this, it's because you haven't added that option into your Visual Studio. Just one more time, you have to go to Tools, Extensions and Updates. Under Tools, Extensions and Updates, you have to hit Online. Online, you're going to hit GitHub extension for Visual Studio. And the way to search for that is Git. If you type in Git, you can get the Git extension from Visual Studio. When you do that, you'll actually see this download button that's up here. It'll appear, you click download, and then you'll have to restart Visual Studio. I'm not going to do that right now. You should already have this. But if you don't, I'm telling you where to do it. And then you should be able to, when you restart Visual Studio and you come back to this point, you should see this, publish to GitHub. This thing is a very easy way to create GitHub repositories right from Visual Studio with no typing in the command line. Alright? If I click on this publish to GitHub link, right, it's going to say, okay, I know who you are. If you, by the way, if you do this for the first time, it'll ask you to log in, give your credentials and all that kind of stuff, right? But for now, I've already logged in. It's going to say, who are you? Well, I'm Tom, but I want to put everything inside my Centennial College organization. For you, it may just be your name, right? And here's the name of my repository, COMP123 Summer 2019 Lesson 9C. It's the same name as my project by default, okay? I could put a description if I want to, I'm not going to, and you could just press publish. If I click publish, if everything goes well, I'll be able to push to GitHub directly, and I'm done. And to check this, just to check that it's done in GitHub, I can go back on the web. Let's take a look. I'll go to GitHub, and I'll go to Centennial. Here's my link for Centennial, and I should see Lesson 9C. I did Lesson 9B earlier, and now here's Lesson 9C for you guys. Okay, make sense? By the way, guys, on a test, this is what you should probably do. These steps that I just told you about, right? So if you do one after the other until you have everything ready, this would earn you 2 marks on a test because guess what? You've just created a repository for me, right? It's a backup. But the problem is if you only gave me this and you updated your program afterwards and this repository was out of date, then you would lose 2 marks because it's not kept up to date. You didn't add stuff to it. All you did here was make a repository, almost like a backup for your files. In order for you to get the full 4 marks, you need to create your repository and keep updating it as you develop. Yes?
The thing is, let's say you have this one repository, right? You're going to have the COMP123 S2019 kind of folder. And then when you go uploading, that means
No, it doesn't overwrite the old stuff. What it does is it only changes the files that you changed. So what happens is the question was, if you keep on pushing, does it overwrite everything? The answer is no, right? What happens is it keeps track of all your changes. That's what version control does. It keeps track of all your versioning. All right? So here's an example of that. If I go to my lesson 9C, I have 3 commits, right? 2 that were created by Microsoft, these 2, and 1 that was created by me. And if you actually click on the commit, you can actually see what was changed. These are all the changes in green. And these are all the deletions in red. So these were removed, these were added. Okay? So that's how it works. Okay, back to this. So now we've made our repository. We've created. Now it's a great place to put my buttons. Now look, I want to make a calculator, and I could certainly drag buttons onto my calculator like this. Look, I can go to Toolbox. I can go to buttons. I can drag and drop here. I can reset them, and then I can copy paste them a bunch of places, and then somehow I can try and align them as best as possible with the alignment button. But I'd have to do that one at a time. What a pain. What if I had to add 30 buttons, 40 buttons, 50 buttons to a form like this? It's too crazy. And what if I wanted to align or stretch to the size of my form? What if I run to make my form bigger or smaller? I'd have to change every single object on my screen, and it takes a long time. So there's a better way to do this for Windows forms. Anyway, we can erase these. You can go to Toolbox, and the first new element we're going to add in is not under Common Controls. It's under Containers. We're going to add in a table layout panel. I'm going to drag and drop this table layout panel onto my screen, about right here. Not right at the top, just slightly below that. And then I'm going to take my table layout panel and make it stretch to fit the size of my form. Okay? I'm also going to bring it down here a little bit so it takes up most of my form, like this. Okay, well this is interesting. So I get 4 cells. I get 2 rows and 2 columns by default. However, if I make a calculator, and if I use Microsoft's calculator as a design, I want to mimic this design, take a look what I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 buttons right here. Maybe I only need 10 of them, but I need at least 3 columns by 4 rows. That's what I need, right? I only have 2 columns and 2 rows. Well, you can change this by clicking this little smart arrow on the right. So this smart arrow is a different thing, new. Take a look at the smart arrow, click it. And now if you go down to Edit Rows and Columns on the bottom, it'll allow you to manipulate how many rows and columns you have. So here I have 2 columns. I want to add another one, so I click the Add button. Now, this is weird. I got 50%, 50%, and an absolute value of 20. Doesn't make no sense, right? I need to highlight all of them by Shift left clicking, and then changing it to percent on the right. And let's change this to about 33.33%. So I'm going to give each of the columns equal spacing. That's what it's doing. And if I press OK, like this, then you can see that now I have 3 columns exactly spaced evenly. Are you with me? I want to do the same thing with the rows. Okay, I want to click on this little layout. I want to click here and go to Edit Rows and Columns. And I'm going to go select from columns to rows, right? And notice it says row 1, row 2, and so on. I need to add 2 more rows, right? So I'm going to add 2 more rows, 1, 2, 3, 4. And instead of it being absolute, I'm going to highlight all of them again, like this. Shift left click to highlight all of them. Click percent, and they should all be 25%. 100% divided by 4, right? And then when I do that, and if I press OK, you can see that I have 4 rows and 3 columns. Yes? Are we good? Why am I doing this? You'll see in a second. All right, let's hide this part, and let's bring up my properties again. I want to see my properties. I want to click on my table layout, and I want to change the name of my table layout. I don't need it right now, but maybe I will, right? So here's my table layout panel. Let's change the name of that. So we'll call it the Calculator button Table Layout Panel. Woohoo! It's a big, long name. And someone out there is going to get mad at me and say, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you making it so large? Well, this way we can, I want to point 2 things out here. One, we can make it as long, pretty much as we want, within reason, right? think it's 32, no, 128 characters or something like that. It's really long in C Sharp. That's one. Second thing is my calculator button table layout is a very descriptive way of, we know what it is. I can find the table layout really quickly, right? Okay, here's some hints on development. I want all of my buttons, when I put them in the layout, to be 20 point, and I want them to be a blue background, and I want them to have Arial as the font, and I want them to have, you can see where I'm going with this, a white front foreground, right? But only when I put them inside of my layout. Well, I can do that by doing this. I can change the layout's font, right? So I go to font, here's my font, and I can change the size of my font to 20. So my buttons are 20 inside here. I can go to the name of my font, and I can change it to Arial. I can also type it in, but I'm going to just select it, Arial. All right, so right now, anything that goes in there is Arial 20. Anything I drag and drop in here. Okay, cool. So I've aligned this thing, and now I want to create my buttons. Let's just move this away for a second. And I want to go back to my toolbox, and I want to go back to my common controls and grab my button. Take a look. Here's my button. I'm going to drag it into my form, my layout, right? Now here's what you notice. Notice that I can't put my button lower than what it is. I can't go beyond the form either. This, if you can, something's wrong, right? And I can't go above it or below it. I have to stay within each cell's bounds. Okay, that's number one. Okay, but I don't want to resize this thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not going to resize it properly. I want it to take up the entire side of this cell. How do I do that? Well, if I go back to properties, for this button, I want to change the anchor. Here's the anchor. Instead of top left, I'm going to choose center. So I'm going to choose this one and also this one. Now this is for the button. When I click away from there, you can see now that the button takes up the entire space. Exactly. Right? So again, when the anchor, I clicked on all these values. All these must be gray with the anchor. Okay? And then it'll stretch to fit. Next, the button itself on the top. I want to rename this thing. This is going to be the 7 button. Okay? 7 button. Right? Because that's what the number is going to be. And I'm going to put the number 7 in there. So text 7. Here it is. But this is kind of boring if it was gray. Let's change the background color of the button. So the back color of the control. Let's go to web colors and let's go to steel blue. Alright, so I'm going to go to steel blue. There it is in the background, steel blue. And then I'm going to go to the fore color. I'm going to go to the fore color of the button here. And I'm going to change the button's fore color to white. It's going to look like this. Are you with me? Are we good? So now I've got this button, and you're going to say, okay, so what? Right? Now, this is the magic. If you did everything correctly up to this point, I can do something like this. I can go edit, copy, or just Control C. Let's do that. And then I can do this. Once I copy, Control C, I can do Control V, 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 and fill it up. And this, my friends, I'll do that again. So I've done Control C, which is, you can also get it from edit, copy, right? And then Control V in place. I'm not moving my mouse. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. And you keep doing that until it fills up that area, right? Now this is a much quicker way of doing it. It's much more accurate than you trying to do it by hand. And the great thing is, if I ever resize my table layout, which I'm going to do later on, not today, but on Wednesday, all the buttons will resize for me. I don't have to lay them out. I don't have to move them around. It does all the layout for me. This is a great tool. Okay, so yes, I've got these buttons, but now they need to be renamed properly. Let's rename them. So I'm going to go to properties. I don't want to run out of time here, so I'm just going to do this a little bit quicker. I'm going to properties, and I need to call this the 8 button. So again, I'm going to go to the name, and it's going to be called the 8 button. You can see where I'm going. Here's my 8 button. And I'm going to go down here and change this, the text value to 8. I'm going to click on the next one, and this is going to be the text value is 9. And I'm going to go scroll up to change the name to the 9 button. 9 button. I'm going to click on this value. This is going to be the 4 button. And there is no quick way of doing this, unfortunately, guys. I'm so sorry, but there is no way. You have to do this by hand. And this is going to be the 5 button. Some people like to do all one, like all the names first, and then the text. That's fine too. Doesn't matter. Whatever suits you more, it's fine with me. And this will be the 1 button.
Some reason it's not letting me change the name of the button. It says property value not valid.
You got to click on the right thing, man. Click on the right thing. Sounds like you're not clicking right. Make sure you click on the button.
I did.
Okay, I'll come around after. Alright, so I've changed all those. Now this will be the 0 button on the one on the bottom in the middle. That'll be the 0 button. It's the 0 button. And this one, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want this one, so I'm going to just get rid of it. And I'm going to make this one the equals button, right? So the last one on the right, I'm going to make it just for now. We're going to change this later on. Equals button, right? So that's the name. And then the value, I'm going to also change it from steel blue. I'm going to change the color a little bit too, because I want to make it so that it's something else, to sea green. And I'm going to go down here and change the text value from 7 to equals. And there we have it. Okay, so very simple. I don't have a calculator yet. I just have buttons and an equal sign. Are you with me? And if you're not, it's okay, because you know what? It takes time to do this. Let me test the form, see how it looks. Okay, so let's see how that looks. It's not bad. I got this. My form is resizable, but guess what? The buttons don't resize right now, right? Because I haven't done that. One more thing I need up here is a result text box or result label up here. So I'm going to put a big result label up here. I'm going to make this slightly different, okay? So again, I'm going to go to Toolbox. I'm going to go to Label, and I'm going to drag and drop my label in here. Here it is. Now notice my label is small again. Why? Because it's outside of this container. By default, it becomes the size of the container. So I'm going to go back to Properties of the label, right? I'm going to change this to Result Label. Here's my result label. Result label. I'm also going to change the auto size function to false. Auto size to false. And this way I have these control handles that come up. And then what I can do is I can kind of stretch this label so it meets this whole area out here. Alright, so again I changed auto size to false in order for me to do that. Right? Alright, cool, that's the label. It's the result label. Let's also do a couple things. I want the back color of the label to be white. So my back color is going to be white. I'm going to make the font size 20. Actually, let's make it 26, since we have lots of room. Font size is 26. I'm going to also make it Arial, just to keep with the style of my form. So here's Arial. My fore color is going to stay black. That's okay. And then I'm going to scroll down to the text. That's going to be 9 or 0. Sorry, that 0 will be the right text. But guess what? 0 doesn't make any sense over here, right? I need to align it. And if you notice, on my calculator has it aligned to the right, right? So again, my calculator is my example. So I'm going to go to Text Align. and instead of top left, I'm going to go to center right, text align. And now you can see that it's here. And if this isn't big enough for you, you can make it a bigger value. Like maybe 30 is the right value, you know, something that looks nicer. Okay, so that's it. We've got our form pretty much done. One thing I don't like is that this doesn't have any borders for my result label. And I can change that by clicking on the result label and changing the border style to single, fixed single. And now it looks a little bit better. When I run this thing, it looks like this now, right? So it looks more and more like a calculator. It's really quite big, right? But I'm using it as a canvas. Think about me painting. I'm just blocking things out. I'm throwing things on the canvas, and then I'm going to realign things later, right? And I can do that by using my table layout. One thing to note is this label is outside of the table layout. That was a design choice. If I wanted to, I could have made an additional row and popped in my table layout up there, but then each of these rows would have to be 20%. Okay, so I could have done that. And there's also ways of making the row span multiple columns. Okay, you can do that as well, just like any table. Now, guys, this is the old way we used to do things with Windows forms. And by the way, even on the web, we used to do this exact same thing. Not anymore. With the new Universal Windows platform, you use something totally different. But we're not doing that, we're doing Windows forms. Okay, so this is cool, we've got this, but we don't do anything with it. It's non-functional. Remember I said if I was making a calculator, I'm kind of partway there. I've kind of partly completed my user interface, right? There's more. I can add more buttons and so on. I'm not going to do that right now because we don't have time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Team Explorer, okay? I just added more buttons, and I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to go to Changes. It's going to show that I've changed these things, and I'm going to say something like added calculator number buttons. That's what they are, number buttons. Commit all, sync, this little sync button, and push, this little push button right here. Okay? And if everything goes well, it's going to push everything to the current branch, which is the master branch. Okay, we're done. We did our commit. Notice how fast that went, right? I do a commit, sync, and push, right? Commit, sync, and push. And I keep doing that over and over again as I develop, right? So it keeps track of my development online. All right, so now that I've got that, I want to add some code, right? I mean, we feel great dragging and dropping because we've been dragging and dropping all over the place. But this interface doesn't even work. It's kind of boring. It doesn't do anything. Let's make it do something. By the way, this is just version 1. We'll be handling version 2 Wednesday, but I want to talk about this with you. All right, so let's go back. So I want to be able to go to my code behind file. I'm going to go to my solution. I'm going to click on right click and go to view code for a second. And notice my code behind file is pretty blank. Let's add some comments to the code behind file. Again, you could have done that with F7 as well. I'm just going to go to the constructor and say something like this, // This is the constructor for the calculator form. Okay? Again, I got there by going to Solution Explorer. I right-clicked and I clicked View Code. You can also press F7. Okay? Great. Okay, so here's what I want to do now. This is the trick that we've been all waiting for. The stuff that I've been building up to the whole day, right? I want to use one event handler to handle all the buttons, right? Which is what we talked about. I want to have one delegate to manage all the different event handlers that are for all the different event listeners. How do I do that? Well, let's bring in my properties. And instead of having properties, I want to click on events. The events little lightning bolt on the top, right? And I want to click on each of the buttons by shift left clicking. Please do not shift double click or you'll create a bunch of forms, okay? Don't do that. So shift left click each of the buttons like this. Shift left click once. Please be careful. Once I have all these buttons clicked, I want to go to the click event. I want to click into it once. And then I want to type in, carefully, calculator button underscore click event. Right, there it is, calculator button click. And then press enter. And what this does is it creates a brand new event that is handling every button, all of them. Okay? So one event. Notice that if I go back to my calculator form and I click away and click back, each one of those things, each one of the buttons is the same event. Doesn't matter which one I do, they're all the same event. They don't go to a different event. Okay? That's a shared event. Alright, so here's my new event. I'm going to name this thing. I'm going to do a little bit of commenting. I'm going to say this is a shared event handler for the calculator button click event. And make sure you spell calculator button correct and click and all that stuff. Again, I have the sender and arguments, remember this? And I want to be doing something like this. I want to say that, okay, depending on who the sender is, I want to be able to take the sender's text object, text property, and put it inside my result label. So I want to type something like this. I want to say that result label dot text is equal to sender dot text. Uh-oh, how come I can't do this? How come I can't do sender dot text? There's a reason for this. Anybody? How come I can't do this? I know that the sender is a button. But curious, does C# know? No. It knows it's an object. It's the granddaddy object. It's the object of all objects. But it doesn't know anything of which object it was. Now there's some tricks you can do. You can say type of object and so on. But we're not going to do that. We want to cast. We want to cast this object, this sender object, as a button. And the one way to do that would be, let's just call this, we'll make a new object. We'll say var. Let's use the var keyword, right? We'll call it the button. Why not? Is equal to, and again, one way to cast it is something that looks like this. Button, just like we cast anything else, and then sender, right? We could do this. But this is kind of ugly syntax. It does the same thing. If I hover over the button now, you can see that I get that it knows that is of type button. Even if I hover over var, it says the type, when I hover over the var, is system.windows.forms.button. That's the type. Okay? How did it know this? Because I'm storing a button inside of it. So therefore, it must be a button. It's using inferred type inference, implicit, data typing, if you will, to understand what kind this is. All right, what type. This is one way of doing it. The other way to do it, which is a little bit cleaner in my opinion, is something that looks like this. Sender as button. It does the same thing, but this is called downcasting. All right, sender as button. What happens is you get the same stuff. You get this as a button. You can still get this as the system.windows.form.button control. It just looks a lot nicer. Okay, so I want to cast the sender as a button, and the button is this. Right now, I can go down here and say, I want the result label to be the button.text. And that would work. By the way, you could have done this all in one. I could have said that result label.text is sender as button, and I can put a brackets around this and then go .text. But why? I can do 2 lines. There's no need to do 1 line here, unless you really want to just be compact. No performance gain. All right. So what does this do? So if I press play, you can see now that I have all my buttons, and if I click any one of the buttons, you should be able to see them coming up in your result label. However, it even does the equal sign, right? And we never see the equal sign when we have a calculator, pretty much, right? And what about if I wanted to detect, I wanted to convert this button from a text into a integer, which is what you guys are going to be doing for your BMI calculator. I want to change the button text, whatever it is, to an integer. But wait, guess what? Will an equal sign change to an integer? No, it is not an integer. So therefore, it will fail. A couple ways to do this. I could do a try catch. I could do a try parse. I could do an if statement, right? Just your design choice. Myself, in this case, I'm going to do a try parse. So I'm going to say that it's going to be something that looks like this. Before I get to this, I want to create some structures. One is going to be called the button value. So I'm going to say var button value. Okay, now here's a question. Can I do this? Var button value? Why is it giving me an underline, a red underline? Why? Yes? I haven't put anything to it. How can it tell what I want? It doesn't know. The computer's not psychic, right? So I can't do this. I have to explicitly tell the type. For example, I know that the button value is going to be of type integer. I know, because all my buttons are integers right now. Okay? That's one. The other thing is that I also want my result. Okay? So my result is going to be a Boolean. Okay? Here's my result. And I can simply just continue this. I can say that my result is equal to int dot try parse. I'm going to make it an integer for now, right? And I'm going to try parse the button dot text. And the next part of the try parse is what's the out result? Out. I'm going to put it out into button value. So what I'm saying here is I'm saying this. I'm saying, okay, try to parse this text as an integer. If you fail, give me a false result. If you're true, put it inside the value you translated into the button value. Store it in here. That's what try parse does. Okay? Again, 3 ways to convert. Convert to, right? One way to do it. Try catch, then convert to. Try catch, and then int.parse. Right? Bunch of ways. The same thing. The result is the same. This just does it all in one line. 2 lines, actually, because you need this. Okay? So that's this part. Then, now that I know it's converted, I want to say that if it's a positive result, if my result is positive, then I want to do this part. And for now, let's leave it like this. We're not done. Else, we're not going to do a ternary operator because we're going to change this later, okay? Else, my result label dot text is equal to not a number, which is nan. Okay? So if it's a number, it's going to print it out. If it's not a number, it's just going to show that it's not a number. So I can detect if it's a number or not. Guys, this is very, very important because if I can tell that a thing is an operator instead of a number, this is good because then I can start doing operations, which we're going to start doing on Wednesday. Okay? So how does this work? Let's try it. I'm going to press play. And when I do that, I collect this and I get these numbers, right? But if I press equals, I get not a number. Right? Why? Because equals is not a number. It can't convert. And if you notice on the bottom left, we don't get an exception because try parse is handling it for us. Okay? So again, I can do all this, no problem. But when I click this, it's not a number. Okay? And that's how you would do it. Questions around this. So we made our basic calculator. We also converted from string into an integer. By the way, we always do that. Like I said, every time we have a form, we want to take values from a form and convert them into something. We need to convert from string into integer. When we do something with the values and spit them back on the form, we have to convert from integer to string, right? We have to go the other way, okay? And really that's it for me. So to recap, we talked about this shared event handler idea, which is what we've done. We've built up to that by clicking all these things. We use the layout panel, which allows us to nicely align these things. And the only thing that's left for me to do is go to Home, Changes, and I'm going to say added basic code to convert input to integers. Right? That's what we did. We tested the form out, and we also added a shared event handler. So we're gonna click commit all. I'm gonna click sync and push, and that's my last. Sorry.
I pressed the wrong button.
That's okay. Same thing. And that's my last push for today. All right, guys. Remember for next week. Next week is gonna be a little bit messed up, but Professor Narendra is gonna come in and help out in the beginning, right? And then I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Okay. Any questions?
No.
I'll come back to you in a second. Have a great day, guys. See you on Wednesday. I've already uploaded it.
Okay.
All right.
Not